Hi everyone, I wanted to do this video to talk about Extinction Rebellion. You may have heard of this movement of non-violent civil disobedience to declare the state of climate emergency, get to net carbon zero as soon as possible, and also to give power to citizen assemblies around the world. The movement started like a year ago, and it's been growing very fast. There was like a big 2 weeks of rebellions early October, and in Belgium we did the first mass action of civil disobedience. It was on October 12th. It was a big success, and but also like we saw a massive repression from the police, very violent repression with pepper spray, water cannons, and 400 arrests, including myself. And you know, what's interesting with Extinction Rebellion is that it's an organism. It's a bottom-up movement, it's flat, it's decentralized, and it's really a learning organism. And so it's good every now and then to take a step back and think about the future and see how best can we improve and change, right? I fundamentally believe that as a movement, we need to change. We cannot continue using all the time the same tactics. If we want to be effective, we need to learn and reinvent ourselves. In the world of startups where I come from, we would say that we need to pivot. It's like when you reach a plateau and then to go to the next level, you need to find keep the same horizon, the same goal, but change the tactics. Maybe find a different angle through which you can get there. And when I look at the critiques of Extinction Rebellion and my own experience in Belgium, in Brussels and in London, where I've been a couple of times, one of the biggest critiques is that it's mostly kind of a white middle class movement. And even though we do everything to be as inclusive as possible, the fact of the matter is that by design, Extinction Rebellion as it is today is actually not inclusive. It cannot be inclusive. We tried to go to Molenbeek, for example, here in Brussels, and which is a neighborhood where there's a lot of immigrants. And when we try to recruit people there, well, what we realize is that, well, for them, they cannot join a movement of civil disobedience. Even when they do civil obedience, they get arrested. That's problem number one. And the problem number two is that it is actually a luxury to worry about the climate. That means that you already solved your problems around security, making sure that you have an income, that you have enough to provide for your family, and so on. And so we need to understand that and learn from that. And so I'd love to make a proposal to change this. I would suggest to pivot the movement around the third demand. So the first demand is telling the truth and declaring the state of climate emergency. We want the media, but also politicians and institutions to tell the truth as it is, that this is a crisis, right? And it has to be tackled as such, and that's why we need to declare the state of climate emergency. And it's been great to see more and more cities around the world, but also countries declaring the state of climate emergency, and I hope that more will follow. But obviously it's not enough. Hence the second demand, which is about getting to net carbon zero as soon as possible, right? And halting the biodiversity loss, right? We definitely need to take drastic measures as soon as possible for that. And the way to do it, and that's demand number three, is through citizen assemblies. And that's something that I find Extinction Rebellion has been really smart about, which is not coming with solutions, right? Extinction Rebellion is not for or against nuclear, for example, right? The point is to say look, we are not specialists, we are not experts, but what we do know is that our existing democratic system based on representative democracy just hasn't been working so far. It's been more than 30 years that we know about this climate emergency, and all the numbers are going in the wrong direction. the fact of the matter is that our existing representative democracy has been hijacked by economic interests that make it impossible to take those decisions that we need to take, that the scientists are begging us to take. And because we also don't want to end up in an eco-fascist society that will remove our freedoms, we want to make sure that the decisions will be taken in a very democratic way, and thence the need for citizen assemblies that will be much better representations of the population. Because it's math, it's about picking randomly people by sortition, making sure that they all get to listen to the experts showing different point of view, for example, for or against nuclear, and then take the time to listen, to understand. Because the problem right now that we have in the world, in our society, is that we argue before we understand. And thinking that everybody will have the time and will take the time to really understand the problem, it's a utopia. So we need to pick a small sample, but representative sample of the population, pay them, making sure that they can take the time, get them in front of scientists, and then deliberate to take decisions. So that's the third demand. And for making that happen, so far, Extinction Rebellion has really been about doing direct action of civil disobedience in a non-violent way. But as we've talked about before, this doesn't make it very inclusive. So how can we change that? So I would suggest to start with the demand number 3, citizen assemblies. But because those require governments, we need to focus instead on people assemblies. The difference between citizen assemblies and people assemblies is that citizen assemblies are really based on sortition, they are really representative of the population, where people assemblies are really much more bottom-up. They start with basically people who show up, right? And so that's good for a movement because we don't want to be dependent on any other institution. So we can already start today creating people assemblies in every city, in every village, in every neighborhood. By design, those people assemblies are welcoming, very inclusive. They are welcoming everyone from any walk of life, from any community, any background. As long as you live and you care about your neighborhood, your city, you are welcome to join a people assembly. And that's the important twist. Use those people assemblies as a safe space where everyone can contribute and express what are their priorities. That's probably not going to be the climate directly. It's probably going to be something different, but it is linked with the system change, not climate change. It's just that people may not know it yet. They may not see it yet. But all the discriminations that we see in the world, in our neighborhoods, in our cities, actually are rooted in the same fundamental issue, which is that our existing hierarchies or institutions are too much focusing on production, efficiency, and they don't look at the full picture. They don't look at the impact on the environment, and they don't look neither on the impact on communities, right? So that's where there is a common ground between the fight for the climate and social justice. That's where we can all meet. And so by focusing the movement Extinction Rebellion on first building those people assemblies everywhere, it will create a safe space that is very inclusive for all communities to express what their priorities are. And then, that's important, making sure that whatever emerge from those assemblies lead to results, lead to actions. And that's where the tactics of non-violent civil disobedience can really be helpful and make a big difference here. Because without that, all of those conversations in those people assemblies will just be wishful thinking or intellectual masturbation. But by knowing that if you go to that people assembly, you will meet other fellow rebels who are going to to unorganized actions of civil disobedience, you know that what you care about, your priority, is going to be heard and may lead to actions that may lead to results. And that's how we're going to start operating system change. That's how we're going to be able to bring everyone, to rally everyone, to make that system change, not climate change. And so that's what as we're studying the XR Schaerbeek, which is a city, a commune in Brussels. It's the most diverse city in the city of Brussels, which is itself the second most diverse city in the world. And so that's going to be a great experiment. We're going to do that every last Sunday of the month. We started 3 weeks ago. We were talking mostly about the concept of Sundays without cars. And we're going to do that now every last Sunday of the month. And we are looking forward to meeting you and talk openly, to organize this together and surface the priorities for the people here in Schaerbeek. Identify concrete actions and make them happen. Because there was a time for the marches, for protest, but I think like a lot of people are getting tired of those forms of demonstrations. We need to make things happen because it's an urgency. It's time for system change. So looking forward to meeting you at the People Assembly. Take care.